Yes, I do. I was about 3 years old at that time, and the memory I remember is running away from the cave coming home. And when I get tired, everybody says, hurry up, run. There are soldiers around after you. So anyway, I kept running. That's what I remember, but everybody has his own story in 48, especially in Ailabouni, my hometown, which is spelled the same like my last name without the I. In Ailabouni, there was a massacre on the 30th of October, and the 29th of October, my sister was born. Of course, at that time, every delivery done at home by a midwife. So my mother was at home one day after my sister was born, and in 48, when the soldiers came into Ailabouni, all the inhabitants of Ailabouni, which is about 680 people, went and gathered in two churches. The Ailabouni was all pure Christian village. My mother could not go with my sister, could not go, and the older sister was 2 years older than me. She was about 5 at that time. We stayed at home with my mother. Everybody was gathered in the church, was called by the police, talked with the priest who was standing on the top of the church with a flag, a white flag to surrender, because we have no weapons and no soldiers. And the soldiers ordered the inhabitants to move from the church, go to the town square. When everybody got into the town square, at that time they killed one guy just to scare everybody else in the square. And everybody remembered him, and remember even my brother-in-law stepped over the body because he was going to. And then they gathered all the town in that square and picked 12 young people between 18 to 30 years old. And one of them is my cousin, and one of is my uncle. And they ordered the soldier to take 3 at a time, and they took them to one location, and they heard 3 shots. And the soldiers came back, and he said, "Is everything okay?" Yeah, he said, "They're gone." So he picked another 3 people from those 12, went from place to place. So they killed the 12 people, 3 at a time, and that was called the massacre of Ailabouni. The book itself, I have 2 answers to this. Number 1, why I wrote the book. Number 2 is the name, where it come from. I want, in a few years, when I'm gone for children and my children, I settled here. My wife is from the United States. She's American. She's from St. Paul. My children and grandchildren, all Americans, and they're going to be here. After several years, they might not recognize or not know the history. I wanted them to know where I came from. So this is the main reason I wrote the book. And basically the book is written for my children and grandchildren and their children. The name, where it came from, because in my question number 1, I remember about leaving the cave to the house during the 48. That's one way. The other thing is when I was leaving Ailabouni, we had party at that time. Everybody leaves and they expect not to come back because it's transportation very expensive, and we did not come from a lot of money. And we had party to say goodbye for me, and all villagers were there. And the priest from Ailabouni gave a speech, and in the speech he was trying to comfort my parents. They were crying, and in the speech he said the poetry which start with, "If the lion doesn't leave the cave, will never get his prey, and if the bow does not leave the arrow, will never reach his target." So that's where I got the word, is leaving the cave. The main thing was when I was a child, I had, first of all, in Ailabouni, a small town, we did not have a doctor in Ailabouni. And I have uncle who was sick at that time, and every time he gets too sick in the middle of the night, I remember going there's one pickup truck in Ailabouni, and I used to go to the driver in the middle of the night to wake him up to come to my uncle's house and take him to Nazareth at that time for a doctor or for a hospital. And that was about half an hour ride at that time. That was the first thing triggered that how need for a doctor in Ailabouni. And that goes back to when I was a child. Absolutely. I was different. I would wish I can say even second-class citizen. I was even worse than second-class citizen. First-class citizen is the Jews came from the West countries. The second-class citizen usually the Jews from Eastern countries. The third-class citizen is some Arabs called Druzes, the one they serve in the army. And then you talk about Arabs like myself, which is fourth or fifth, class citizen. Example, very simple example is I lived about 5 miles away from Tiberias. I could not go to Tiberias from 1948 till in the 60s. Why? Because I need permission. And when I need permission, I spend a day to basically waiting to get the permission. And the permission allowed me for only one day, from 8 in the morning till 5 in the afternoon, I have to leave Tiberias. And I did that only once from 48 to 1963 or 65, and that's when they left this permission thing. And that's one way. The other thing is in education and everything else, we were treated very, very different. First, I came to York College, Nebraska. It's a junior college in York, Nebraska, for 2 years. Then I moved into Omaha, Nebraska, attended a great university for the 3rd and 4th year undergraduate, and that's when I met my wife, and I got my bachelor degree there. And I applied to medical school. I didn't get in. I was in the waiting list for 2 years. Then, because by that time I was 26 years old, I moved to Mexico, to Old Mexico, to Guadalajara. I went to school there for the medical school. I lived there 3 years, and the last year of schooling I did it in the United States, in 1 semester in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and the other half year, which is another semester, in St. John Hospital in St. Paul. And after that I went back to Pennsylvania for the residency, which is 3 years, and then I moved to Farmington, and I have been living in Farmington since then. I opened my practice, and I practiced in Farmington for over 30 years. Because only profession I want to study for is medicine. And when I finished high school from Nazareth High School, I applied to the Hebrew University. I did not want to come here. I want to study in back home. And I applied to go to medical school there. They accepted me to study Arabic and history, which is completely different from medicine. I applied for 2 years, and at that time they were not accepting too many Arabs, speaking of different class citizenship there. And when I did not get there, I decided to go abroad to achieve to go to medical school, and that's when the main reason I came here, because I could not study that subject back home.